All right, let's go to the registration fees. This is in our packet. One of the things we had talked about at the last meeting was taking out the registration fee for the third sport. We had talked about it possibly moving to and then we went to competitive activities and some other things. I think what I'd like to open for discussion is a cap if we do two sports. The first sport's $250, correct me if I'm wrong, and the second sport is $100.
$200 and $150.
$200 and $150. So it would be a $350 cap at activities. I thought this would give a little relief to the families of activity students, and also encourage someone who might not do a third sport based on the economics of it, the ability to do that. So my goal would be to raise the activities for the third sport.
So we did receive the question for the last meeting. It'd be roughly $3,800. We have roughly 38 students that participate in a third sport, which is the $100 fee. And then someone asked about activities, and there are roughly there are 23 students there in a combination of 3 or more activities with a participation fee. So if we eliminated that third fee, that would be about $3,100 from activities and $3,800 from athletics, which are not significant dollar amounts, which we could definitely support. However, I think what we're probably missing, and I think Ms. Zayla submitted this question, like, what's the combination of? Is there a kid that plays a sport for $200 and does 3 or 2 activities where they might even be higher than the third sport athlete? And so that's where Kristen and I went into some discussion yesterday. We would have to go hand by hand to each student to see if they're a combo of 1 or 2 sports plus a paid activity. We know they do exist, but there's not an easy way to pull that data. And so if the board wants to see that specific data, we'd have to wait till the next meeting and have they have the athletic administrative assistant and our business office assistant correlate their files to make sure we're giving you an accurate count. But Kristen and I discussed this yesterday, and we talked a little bit before the meeting about possibly just implementing a cap of say $350, and that no student would be expected to pay, would be capped, whether it's participation in athletics or participation in activities, or the kid that does the combo, their family would not have to pay more than $350 per student.
Yeah, Laura, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I have a couple. So if we did a cap across the board, that could be a significant amount of money more than what we see on the chart. Because if somebody did 2 activities and 2 sports, they would be paying for both those at $700. If we cap it at $350, that'd be a $350 loss just on that one student. That could be significant because we don't have good data to just say across the board cap combined athletic activity, I think would be dangerous. If you're saying 2 sport cap and a 2 activity cap, until we get more information, I would support that with a 1-year kind of investigative year, like Governor Quinn did with that property tax. And if it's not a significant hit, we can support it, then we can keep it. But if we find out that there are some nuances that we just didn't realize, then we may have to go back to keeping it. And then my last comment might be, if we could pull up data and look at the activity fees of students, is there anything that flags students who have a higher activity fee than others based on participation of sports and or activities?
Yes, I think that's what the board, we can provide information to the board. This is an example of the fees that were up for today. So Kristen does think she would be able to provide a general summary of what the total fees would be if we did a combo, but we're going to need 2 weeks. So I could provide that at the cow, and I think we can, if we can approve the rest of the fees tonight. This does need to go in the handbook, so I could work with Kristen to get you an answer on the overall data, and then we can get back to the athletic fees and activity fees at the cow meeting and take a vote then once we have more data.
I think Ms. Alice, you had a question.
Thank you. No, I like the intent of this discussion in terms of making sure that our students can participate in all the activities that they may be interested in. My concern is if we are approaching this a bit piecemeal, right? That, you know, we're not looking at all of the fees, we're looking at 3 sport athletes, 3 competitive activity, or 3 performance activity athletes. I'm just concerned about taking this as a bit of a one-off exercise, knowing what lies ahead in terms of the budget year for 20 and 21. So my question, and Kevin may have answered it already, is timing. Can we, you know, defer this discussion for 2 weeks to get a slightly more comprehensive view of what we're talking about, or is there urgency to move forward on it tonight?
I think what's for sure the athletic and activity, we could wait 2 weeks to get this out back to you and make a decision at the cow at the April 28th meeting. In regards to the other registration fees, there were no other questions submitted on that. And I will say this, I know just from speaking to families, not only athletics, but once you add in the class fees, if your kid's taking driver's ed, yearbook, student fees can be $700-800 per kid, right? So if I'm hearing you clearly, that's more of your concern. Like, are we just capping it for kids with activities or athletics? We had not engaged in any discussion about should there be a cap for just a general kid who doesn't maybe do multiple sports or activities, but has a huge amount of student fees. I did not engage in that conversation in any board member yet.
No, that's exactly correct. I think as someone who will have 3 students there next year, those fees are not small. And so I just want to make sure that we're looking at this comprehensively and not with just a piece of our population. So if we can defer this for 2 weeks, I would appreciate it, just to see what is financially feasible in terms of an overall cap on fees of some sort.
Okay, I think, Gina, you had a question, comment?
Yeah, maybe I heard you wrong. Did you say a cap per family or per student?
It would be,
Per student, right?
excuse me, the way I understand it to be is per student. So it would
Okay.
just be on that third sport or performance activity, competitive activity. But I do see the you know, the value of more information and how this lays down. I mean, I think when you get into, you know, when you get into the third sport, it's kind of a triple dip, right? Is $350 enough to, I mean, sports are inherently expensive. There's buses and referees and equipment and all these things. That is part of what we're asking the people that use the school to pay for a lot more of the school, right? And I truly believe in that, but I think at some point you're hindering that activity, which is one of the things that we're here to really strive for kids to do activity. When you have 1,600 kids and only 20 kids are doing it, I wonder where that was 10 years ago, I guess, when there was no fee for it.
And it would be a large, I wouldn't say undertaking, But I think the dollars we're talking about when you start talking about class fees and things like that, if you put a cap per kid, I don't know if that data could be fully generated in 2 weeks, right? Because some of those fees, some students choose to take 7 courses, some students choose to take 5, some students, I mean, the yearbook's like an activity pass, right? That's a purchase. It was, I think the question originally, where my mindset was on the athletics and activities. I can see, if I can gather in a short time, about a general cap on fees and across the board between class and athletic and activity. But originally when this was set up, it was to help offset the cost of running. Wes, can you move?
Yeah.
It was originally set up to offset the cost of bringing back a lot of the sports and activities that had to be cut due to the financial times the district was going through when I first got here. And so that was one of the ways we helped offset some of those costs and brought things back. So at the end, I will try work with Kristen to see if I can give you a better snapshot of that. I will start with the athletic and activity, and then we can see if we can go with something further from there.
Thank you.
Laura, you still have your hand up? You're muted, Laura.
I do have a concern because some of the fees are just the fee of being in the classroom. They're tangible. It's what a student uses. And I think maybe those fees should be kind of put in a category, you know, like your lock, your kind of your rental, the things that you use, your transcript fee. Those are just cost of doing business type fees. And I think those should be not even used in the consideration, kind of like a base fee that every student has to pay. But then there's going to be students who are taking AP classes and they're going to have additional fees. So when we start to look at a cap per student, that AP fee is a lot cheaper than taking a college class a year later. But if we look at that AP class fee and we look at a couple of activities in a sport, yes, that student will have higher fees, but they're also taking advantage of many activities at very fair prices. So, you know, as we start to look at the fees and not kind of lump everything together, but to kind of pull some things out or hold them constant, I think will be important.
Deanna, you still have your hand up?
Oh, it can come down.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll table this registration fees. Marianne, if this could be an item under old business for the April cow. Kristen, if you could pull definitely the athletic and activity data to see what the combo is there. And then we'll see if we can figure out some kind of format to provide a little data analysis. I mean, every student pays the $200, the registration and the tech fee, because we provide the Chromebooks. Can't get into really course fees. So I would think maybe if we just look at these general fees, but I'll see if I could pull something together for you before the cow. Okay, Wes.